Christian parenting.
Welcome to Pardon the Mess. I'm your host, Courtney DeFeo. Parenting is messy. Can I get an amen? Like, it's physically messy. Stepping on Cheerios or maybe a cheeseburger wrapper falling out of your car in carpool. It's also emotionally and spiritually messy every day in every stage. On this podcast, you'll get some nuggets of wisdom on parenting and faith and find some super helpful resources. But my greatest hope is that you'll never feel alone in the hilarious, stressful, glorious, and painful journey of parenting. You guys ready? Let's laugh and learn together. Here we go. Christian Parenting has just released an exciting new product called Scripture Affirmation Cards. These cards are a fun and easy way to help your kids grow in confidence and an unshakable faith. Each card has a unique biblical truth and affirmation that is rooted in Scripture and gives your kids a powerful tool to affirm their identity in Christ, align their thoughts with God's Word, and give them confidence they need to face the problems and insecurities kids face every day. Like, what if I don't make the team? What if things don't go as planned? What if I feel lonely? What if I feel worried? They're perfectly sized so your kids can bring them wherever they go and be reminded that they are loved by you and loved by God. Maybe the mirror, maybe the car. You can put them in a lunchbox. They are so easy to use and you will love them. To get your cards, go to www.cpgive.org. That's cpgive.org. But here's why I love podcasting as a host, because I listen and I learn, and then I go back to listen again to edit, and it's just like I receive it all over again. You know, some of those sermons, you're like, okay, that hit me, but I got to listen to that one 4 times. This is one of those that you are going to want to save, email it to yourself, pen it, whatever you need to do. But I think there's seasons of your life, and I talk to a mom almost every day that feels this way, and I have, where you feel lost and unseen. Like, what do I do with my life? Like, am I just wiping tushes and changing diapers or wiping the counters? And she talks about the wiping season. It's like, what? I used to be good at some things, and you just feel like there's no calling or purpose. And we know it's important to be a mom, but you just start feeling like really unseen and really that you're not valued, or that God kind of overlooked you. And that is such a lie. And so there's 2 things you're going to love about today. One is that she will speak some truth and encouragement to your heart and things you didn't even know you needed to hear. Like, I fully expect you guys to be crying down the road. And then the second thing is she gives some really practical things, like some mindset shifts and some things we can ask and do during the season of motherhood. And as she says, this is just the beginning. This isn't the end of you. This isn't the end of your story. This is just the beginning. But we know, both of us know, how overwhelming and almost frustrating and sad it can feel when you feel a little bit trapped. And, oh gosh, you're just going to love it. So Brooke Warnock, she's a friend of mine. She's my life plan coach and facilitator. She used to run with her husband a place called Lost Valley Ranch, and they just recently transitioned off of that. But she talks about that she brought 4 of her 5 children home to a double-wide trailer. So she was literally in the middle of nowhere trying to raise these kids while managing staff that worked at this dude ranch and host groups that would come through. And so you've probably heard even some other podcasters or speakers or authors say, we had the best time at Lost Valley Ranch. They do a lot of really cool retreats and moments and events for people. But that's Brooke. It was behind the scenes with her family running that for so many years. And so you'll just relate to her story of being another mom just like you that is doing the thing, but often like, is this really what you have for me, Lord? Like, really? I'm in a double-wide trailer. So a couple things. She does mention her sister, who is Jenny Allen, which most of you know is from If Gathering. And we get honest. I ask her about that comparison and what that feels like to have sisters or friends that are running a race that seems bigger than yours. What do you do with that? And then also I want to mention that when we recorded this in February, she had a full-on fire crackling. So if you hear the crackling, it's not our brilliant audio team, it's the fire, which is just her and so cozy that she lives in a place where you can have fire. Wouldn't that be awesome? Okay. Love you guys. Enjoy. And it's longer. It's like an hour probably, but you can listen to it in 2 parts. I want to know what you think, and I want to hear how it ministered to you, because it certainly did to me. Brooke, I love you. Thank you for being on. Here we go. Okay, y'all, I'm so excited. I have my friend Brooke Warnock. How are you today?
I'm good.
Y'all
I'm
can't
good.
see
Real
her,
life.
but I can see her adorable house in a chair. And you just said you furnished your whole house with Facebook Marketplace.
I did.
What?
I'm a Facebook Marketplace guru. They're all. I mean, it took about a year and a
Okay.
half, and I care, which we'll go into this, but I care deeply about space and care deeply about. It's not, yes, I come from a long line of designers, but it's more just that I want
Yeah.
a feeling in my home, and but we're on a budget.
Yes. I feel like maybe Colorado Springs has a better marketplace because here in the one in my area.
Maybe so. And I do think it's getting
Hmm.
bigger. And I think that the whole like
Yeah.
vintage cozier style is
Yeah.
coming back. And that makes me happy
Yeah.
because it's more me. And I think that's easier to find things that are used and that are,
Have you seen that meme where the guy's like, I stood out here and risked my life to sell this blender for $4 to a stranger?
yes, yes. Best case scenario,
That's
we
right.
get $5. Worst case scenario, I die.
I price my stuff too
I'm
high. And then
quoting.
my friends are like, no. I'm like, is it worth it to put this on the porch for $10? I don't understand.
Right. I don't understand. Now they
That's
know
right.
where I live. I don't know this. I don't
I
understand
think I
this
need a
this
code name.
concept.
Be like, I'm Brooke DeFeo, or, I just need something different. So, okay, tell us about
Yes.
your family. I want people to know who you are, where you
Yes.
are, and go ahead and just weave in if you want, like where you are in this season. I know you've had a big change from where you live and love for people to know about that.
Yes. First of all, real life. I mean, I have this beautiful backdrop, but I have what 8 beds in my house. Not one of them is made. Real life. We've had like 3 car crashes in our family
Amazing.
this month. Um, just I don't know what happened. The demons fell upon our vehicles because it's not just my teenage driver. It's me too. I mean, the last one I just texted my husband. I said, I'm ashamed. Like I don't know what's wrong because I don't have car. I mean, we really haven't had one in years. But we're dealing with that. I gotta, take my
It's
car
the
into the shop
worst.
later. Yeah, just real life, is happening all the
Yeah.
time in this household. We have 5 kids. We moved off of a guest ranch called Lost Valley about, well, we actually moved off only a year ago, a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. But my husband resigned from his position almost a little over 2 years ago. So it's been a whirlwind of transition. We bought this little piece of heaven, this little slice of heaven in Colorado, and renovated it. And we've only lived here for about, I've only called this home for about 6 months. So it's just been, pivot after pivot after pivot. My kids, for the first time, I mean, I am coming to you live from a quiet house. Like that is
Yeah.
a miracle because I have homeschooled for 13 years because of our unique calling out at Lost Valley. And my kids started full time school this year. And so I think I miss
Yeah.
them. I love them. Gosh, they're gifts. All the right, I'm saying all the right things, right? But I am also embracing a quiet
Is
house.
it like an out of body experience? Like, what is,
It
yeah.
really is. I'm still in that process of like, okay, now it's going to be
Yeah.
interrupted at
Yeah.
some point. Like this isn't
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
forever. So I do think it is a little bit like surreal. And, I'm looking at a beautiful view of the mountains and of Colorado Springs, and my home has truly become a respite. But our home at Lost Valley, even though it had beautiful views and I learned to enjoy those views, it was also the place where we worked and where we labored. And so I think I always had to work a little harder for that
Mm,
place to be a true respite. And I do think that it feels like God is just in his kindness
yeah.
giving back a little of just giving back some quiet that I haven't had in a long
Yeah.
time.
How long were y'all on the ranch? What,
So we were on the ranch for 15 years. So I had all the babies out there. I have right now a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old. So they're pretty close
wow.
together. And they grew up there. So not only did we have to emotionally adjust and physically adjust, it was helping our kids do the same.
Yeah.
Um, it really is a funny thing. It was one of the hardest jobs I'll ever do.
Yeah.
Was raising young kids out there, but it also, I learned to see the reward in it, and I learned to see where God was showing up in it. And it took me really to a place of really spiritually growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was the place I spiritually grew up. Cause I'd known Jesus my whole life, but nothing like and I think this is, one reason I'm here today, nothing like the fire and pressure of motherhood, of, life not going exactly the way that you thought it would or you
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
envisioned, motherhood not going, not being what you thought it would
Yeah.
be. Nothing quite like those pressure points
Correct.
to squeeze out, right? To
Yes.
squeeze out what's actually
Yeah.
there, and then to give God the ability to work with us, just be a little more
Yeah. Yeah.
moldable and a little
I
more
was recording a prayer
pliable.
today about refinement and was like, oh, I hate refinement. Like, God's doing it for your good, but it's painful. It is
I
painful.
know
So
it
let's talk
is.
about the mom. I feel like I have this conversation with almost every mom I talk to at the crux of like when we get really honest. And I wrote some feelings like,
Yeah.
and I felt this way. And I know you and I talked before that we both feel this way many times in our lives, but I feel lost. I feel unmotivated. I feel confused. I feel overlooked. I feel like the best is behind me.
Mhm.
I feel like I used to be smart. I feel stuck. I feel like I used to offer value. And it can be very lonely and quiet if you're staying home and working from home most of the day. And probably people that work in the marketplace feel that too. But as someone that's kind of juggling kids and career or kids and passions or kids and
Mhm.
spiritual gifts, like it can become really overwhelming.
Mhm.
So have you felt that way? And tell us, make us feel normal.
Okay, I can do that real easy. I followed my husband out to Lost Valley. That was his calling, and Lost Valley is an hour and a half from civilization. In fact, our first home was a 2-bedroom little double wide trailer that felt like the walls were caving in. I brought 4 kids home to that trailer before we moved, and the feeling of trapped was what I felt most days. And now I know myself well enough to know that in my feelings of entrapment, that I was essentially, I mean, I'll be real honest, there were times I was just acting out. Like
Mm,
it really was that kind of relationship with God where I felt trapped. I wasn't given what I wanted. My expectations weren't met. And there would be, outburst of tears.
mm.
I do have a vivid memory of locking myself in the master bedroom closet one day. I mean, there's some doozies that maybe aren't appropriate for all of America, but there's some doozies. And man, the trickiness, the trickiness of feeling like you have gifts to contribute to this world, but really all that, your only assignment that day is to keep diapers clean and to feed kids and floors mopped. It is, I called it the error of wiping. You're just wiping all the time, everything, everybody, right? It's just the error of wiping. And gosh, I think what I would say, my main message that I hope anyone in that season of life would feel is that this isn't the end.
Mm,
This is could just, I mean, for me, it was really just the beginning
yeah.
of of me really dealing with God, but also really figuring out what I'm good at and what I'm bad at and I think sometimes we think that should come, the myth is that should come,
Right.
right? Like that should come right out of college and then should just
Yeah.
stay. But we have seasons. I mean, the world itself created by our creator has seasons. And I think motherhood is one of those when you have babies and toddlers and they can't go to school yet and they can't get out of the house yet and you can't leave them behind. It's just a season
Yeah.
and it doesn't feel like it. Oh, we know, right, Courtney?
Yes.
We
Oh my
know. I
gosh.
mean, it just doesn't feel like it. But my gosh, it is not the end. And always, we were both at IF this
Yeah.
weekend, which is my sister's conference, and I Ian Voskamp said that hopelessness is the poverty of imagination.
Wow.
I wish I had practiced
Mm,
more. I wish I'd practiced that more as a trapped mom, a young mom. Just the imagination of, oh, like me changing these, this sounds so silly, but me changing these diapers over and over again, that's, that's going to, at some point that will produce a human
Right.
being that could change the world. I mean, it's just, it's making every single thing. And we did this in hospitality at Lost Valley with our guests, even though we were cleaning toilets, it was like, no, 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 this really does
That's
matter
right.
for
That's right.
eternity. And every act of restoration and every act of service that you do humbly and kindly and joyfully, it actually brings the
Yep.
kingdom of God to this
That's right.
world. And so I wish I'd had more
I
imagination.
love
I
that.
wish I had more
And I
imagination.
love that you're giving people permission to be honest. Like when you said that about the closet, I'm like, I vividly remember putting on running shoes and literally running away. Like he had just gotten home and I just like tagged, it was
Yeah.
like, hey, high five.
Yeah.
And I just ran. And I just remember
Yeah.
bawling at the little like park in my neighborhood and feeling so overwhelmed because I begged for this. I wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
I loved being a mom, but there were
Yeah.
days it felt very
Right.
overwhelming and like you were trapped. And we know that that's not the truth. But I think, like you said, it's hard. Like when you have a baby, you're like, I can't see anything but like the formula that's not working and da da. And then you're like, oh, all of a sudden
Yeah.
they stop drinking a bottle. Like all of a sudden they bathe
And
themselves, but it
I
feels
know.
like
I know.
so overwhelming. Let's talk about your parents because I look at you and your sister Jenny, and I don't know your other sister, but would love to. But they raise some
And she's incredible.
incredible.
Our little sister is incredible. She's had a hard go of it, and she's our
I
hero.
love
I mean,
it.
she truly is. Yeah.
They raised some strong women. So besides Jesus, which obviously was a thing in y'all's life, what is one thing you think, gosh, they did really well?
Um, First of all, did you ask Jenny this?
No,
Did
I don't
you?
think so.
Okay, I was just curious
No, I don't think
what
so.
she would have said. An ongoing joke. I thought about this when you sent me over some questions. The ongoing joke we have with our mom is that, I mean, it doesn't matter now with Jenny, right? It's like there's critics all online. There's critics
Yeah,
everywhere,
yeah.
right? She leads a public life, but I mean, bless her, she still would say, "Well, they're just jealous of you." I mean, if like let's say there was a bully in high school, well, they're just jealous of you.
Correct.
You just be kind back. You just, because you're awesome. You're doing great.
That is my mother.
Heaven forbid that someone actually not like us. I mean, that would,
Yeah,
that they just may not like us, mom. That may be real life. But I think it did all that to say it's kind of a funny thing about our mom, but it also instilled this sense of like, I mean, self-confidence
correct.
is not lacking. And I think we've had to move out into all of our different assignments and callings and figure out what that actually looks like, how that plays out. Because I think all three of us would say that, we have at times, I mean, for me, I'll speak on behalf of myself, but at times at Lost Valley, there were times where maybe I was a little too confident, a little too
Right.
zealous, a little too, right? Like, let's just conquer this. Let's move, let's figure this out. Let's problem solve. Um, let's do this hospitality thing. And then there would be a staff girl that, was going through some
Yeah.
stuff and I would have bulldozed over
Right.
it, over the moment. Right. I think that they were and are some of our biggest
Mm,
fans, like truly are. I mean, they didn't hyper focus on we all made decent grades, but they didn't hyper focus on it.
mhm.
It feels like when I look back on it, they really didn't hyper focus on any, like
Yeah.
obsess over really anything. And so if we wanted to go to summer camp, if we wanted to, it was like, great, well, that sounds like a great opportunity. Go do it. Like, there wasn't this
Right.
there wasn't an angstiness to us pursuing certain opportunities. And then the other thing, I always say that about that story about my mom, but our dad is a man of conviction.
Wow.
And I think and believe that he shaped our convictions so that we clearly knew. And I think it's important with young people, especially in the very, let's, kind of relative world that we live in where everything feels a little
Yeah.
bit in the
Yeah.
gray. He just was a man of black and white. And at times we butted up against it. But I think the outcome was that we walked away with confidence, knowing our
Wow.
convictions. And I think then we felt compelled to use that
Wow.
and to,
That's a
to take it.
word. And I'm thinking as you said that,
Yeah.
having a little aha, like, you can value your child and support your child without overemphasizing one of their things. Like going like,
Yeah.
okay, well, Jenny, you're a
Yeah.
cheerleader, your whole life is a cheerleader. Or, Brooke, you're a ranch person, you're only valuable if you're at the ranch. Like whatever the thing is, like that is such a good caution
Right.
for us to say, like, you can fully support and be a big cheerleader without diving into a
Yeah.
certain lane, which is, I think we do
Yeah,
that.
and that child might do that. That might be, they could end up being an Olympic
Yeah,
swimmer, right? But I don't, it's a little bit of that knowing that your child, like there's some separation.
correct.
There's some healthy boundaries in place that keep you from that becoming your
Right.
obsession, or if they're struggling, that struggle becoming your
Yeah.
obsession.
Let's talk about
So,
comparison. I'm moving this up because we had talked a little
yeah.
bit about it. But as you think about siblings and you think about, I think that's a major thing that's impacting our why we feel so stuck because we're like on our phone and we're waiting for them to get up from the nap and we look and somebody's like has their own small business and their hair is curled and they make $3 million and we're
Mhm.
like, I'm a loser. Like I can't even get my
Mhm.
hair, clean. So do you think that plays a big part in us thinking there is one calling and we all should be following these little steps? Have you dealt with that? Like just comparison and then having to get honest about the way God made you specifically?
Oh, Courtney, it probably has been as far as like daily battles, that's probably my daily battle. I try to be careful about social media when I use it because of that. So, let's call out the obvious. I have a sister who's doing incredible world changing
Mm,
things. And I've had to get real used to my small world.
yeah.
Um, and being the middle of three
Hmm.
sisters has also just naturally, I think it's a common
Yeah.
struggle. I've naturally compared myself, right? My other sister um, is a designer, a very successful designer, and has huge following, and just in her world is successful. And I think that I think it really does go back to. I mean, I regularly fixate on. Um, so I used to ask this question to the Lost Valley staff girls when they felt you could tell. There's just always that. High maintenance guest. There's always that high maintenance group.
Yeah.
You kind of feel the what you're describing, kind of that overwhelming sense sometimes that would just kind of wash
That's right.
over the
Yeah.
staff. And I remember giving pep talks and saying, "Listen, we've been given out of God's good grace. We've been given dominion. Like we are not going to fall victim to the happenings
That's
around
right.
us. We've been given dominion because God loves us that
Mm,
much. So, what do you have dominion over today?
mm,
Just today. And that's why I use those words like assignment and purpose. And I mean, there is, you know, right now, there is assignment and dominion that I can like take hold of in my house today that I know is going to be maybe not seen today, but will be seen for
that's right.
eternity and will be seen. And yes, I've struggled with feeling unseen. I've struggled with, feeling missed. I
Mm,
think I've had a few dreams about like some of my worst literally some of my worst dreams have been about feeling almost an abandonment or
mm,
being
yeah.
missed. And the way that God feeds me in those times, the way that God reminds me
Mm,
is his kingdom is not like this world. Like there is, right? Like the recognition, the glory of what we think, certain people have, the his kingdom is unlike
yeah.
that. It's not even, we can't, honestly, I don't even know that we can know
That's right.
it or that we can
That's
fathom
right.
it. I think that's almost a guarantee. And so when I can, again, it's a little bit of that using my
Yeah.
imagination, when I can ascend to those eternal thoughts of, okay, but I am seen.
That's right.
I'm seen by God. I'm seen, and that sounds cliche, but I
Yeah.
am. I'm seen by my works, and my contribution that day matters for eternity. And keep digging into that. Keep camping out there. Um,
Love
yeah,
that.
controlling my thought life is a huge part
Yeah.
of it. A huge part of it.
I'm the middle, so I knew I liked you, but I have an older sister and a
Yes.
younger brother. And I remember one time my sister and I were getting into, not, we weren't comparing, but it was obvious. Like I was just starting to speak and write, and she's an incredible
Mhm.
human. And she said, we were at an event and I was speaking and I pointed to her. It was actually the staff of her church. She was on staff. I said, Carrie, what do you think about? Like, I think I asked her about creativity or comparison or something. And she said, clear as day, look, just because we do ministry and life different doesn't make you more valuable or me more valuable. And that
Yeah.
was like an aha moment. And I've told my girls that are sisters, like, that is it. Because it looks different doesn't mean one is
Mm.
more valuable than the other, because the world says like size, thousands, you know what I mean? And I will transition this way to say, I have seen you and your gifts. Like I got to spend 4 days with you and you helped Ron and I do our life plan that we're going to talk about. And I was just
Yes.
like giddy watching you, like, this is her lane. Like the way you hosted
Mhm.
us and your gift for hospitality, the way you encouraged us in our gifts and challenged us, like you are in your sweet spot. And
Mm.
I'm just so excited for you because you go deep with several people throughout the year, and that
Mhm.
will compound in light of eternity. Like you have
Mhm.
no idea. I think you won't know till heaven what kind of godly changes and what kind of things you
I think
stirred in
you
us.
Well, and I think you said that after our time together, and I took that and I pondered the thought again. It's that camping
Yeah.
out in those thoughts that you're like, okay, I want to think about that. And Lord, what do you have to say about it? And one thing he like revealed to me that I don't know if it's, all these, dreams and
Yes.
revelations. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if, like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if it's the Lord, but he does remind me on a regular basis that, like, our impact doesn't stop right in front of
Correct.
us,
Yeah.
right? Our impact has like
That's
tentacles,
right.
and it moves out and it multiplies. And again, it multiplies in a way according to God's kingdom and not this
That's
world.
right.
And I don't know that heaven is not going to be this incredible reveal of lives that we've all touched by changing diapers,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, by doing the dishes, by hosting a dinner, whatever it is that feels small to you, you don't know what may come down, that may come your way and what may be revealed when our blinders drop.
Yeah. I
Like,
agree. I agree.
and we get to see the glory of God and the glory of his kingdom, that there will be lives that just
Correct.
we have no idea.
Well, I think
Yeah. I loved.
I'm a product of a mom that didn't have any of the things that we have. Like she didn't have podcasts and, she had her Bible.
Yes.
But I think I will look back and I've told her this is like her eyeballs on me, her delight in me, her confidence in me,
Mm,
her like, you belong and I
good.
want you here. You're not in my way. Did things for me that I could never. And she stayed home with us the entire way. And it gave me a
That was our
foundation
mom too.
for raising my kids that I didn't have to be home all the time. But when I was there, that is a big deal. Like the eye
Yes.
contact, the hugging, that I'm so proud of you, that like I'm present. It's just
All
different
right.
than we ever know. Like,
That's right.
and I'm seeing it now. We have teenagers. It's like, oh my word. Like they're coming through like, I don't want to be around you, to like, no, I want to be next to you. And I'm like, this is so fun. I have one on the other side that's like,
Yes.
I see the friendship coming and I see that reward of like,
Yeah.
this was years of just staying
Yeah.
close. Parenting is about to get easier and a whole lot more effective. What happens when you combine the power of neuroscience with love and logic in parenting? Well, hopefully you grow confident, kind, responsible, and resilient children and young adults. Dr. Daniel Amen, neuropsychiatrist and founder of Amen Clinics, and Dr. Charles Fay, child psychologist and president of the Love and Logic Institute, have teamed up to reveal what's missing from most parenting books in their new book, Raising Mentally Strong Kids. This is a resource I wish I had had 17 years ago, and I'm still going to use it, even though I've got older kids. You need to address both the brain and the mind of your child and yourself in order to effectively raise good and strong humans. In this groundbreaking book, parents are given practical tools to help children of all ages go from behavior problems such as defiance, meltdowns, and power struggles to being responsible, confident, kind, focused, motivated, and equipped to develop healthy relationships. Let Dr. Amen and Dr. Fay help you learn how to raise great kids who are on their way to reaching their full potential and their best possible mental health. Visit raisingmentallystrongkids.com to learn more. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. If you had an extra hour in your day, what would you do? Well, the best way to squeeze in that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and how to make it a priority. Therapy can help find what matters to you so you can do more of it. And it also is helpful for things like learning positive coping skills, how to set boundaries, and it empowers you to be the best version of yourself. I am a huge fan of therapy. If you are thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient and easy and flexible. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if you need to, you can switch at any time. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/mess today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mess. So
Yeah.
let's talk about life plan. Tell them what you're doing
Yeah.
now, and I'll share a little bit about my experience. But why is that important for us to think about as women that feel stuck?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the idea of it came because I felt stuck at Lost
Mm-hmm.
Valley. That's important to note.
Yeah.
This was not something that I had like dreamed of and fantasized all
Right.
my life. Right. I mean, it's again, real life, real life. I did a life plan. My husband and I were trying to lead Lost Valley together. I was feeling missed. I was feeling unseen. Really, and by him, by your husband, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
He's a incredibly gifted leader, and he was in charge of the whole place. And so, of course, it was kind of another mark of that. I remember it was probably almost 3 years after our couples life plan that we decided to explore what it would look like for me. I mean, with my time with Pete Richardson, who is big into, I call him the Yoda and Sage of life plans. We explored with him the idea of like, what does it look like for me to do something at Lost Valley that keeps me still at Lost Valley, but I'm a lot. I have a lot of aspirations, a lot of goals and dreams, and it just was getting to the point where, as my kids got older, and it was very apparent that I needed to kind of have a lane that was more carved out for me for the sake of our marriage, if anything else. And I, plopped down on a sofa in my old house at the ranch and said, "What about life planning? Like what?" And Pete was like, "Absolutely." Like there was just not even a hesitation. And so it started like that.
Yeah.
That's what's so funny about our dreaming and
Yeah.
our thinking that we haven't arrived. It's like you just never know when a pivot might take you a direction that you're not even aware of yet.
I love that it was out of a struggle and a weakness versus
Yeah,
us going, what are the things I'm thriving at right now? Like he can use even those
right.
stages to birth something new. And so that's what he did with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my vision statement on the lock screen of my phone is what I wrote with Pete, 5 or 6 years ago now, and it's to connect with people in order to inspire emotional, relational, mental health and love. And for me, that was in the context of hospitality, and it continues to be. I do believe hospitality can literally change lives. But I also knew that there was this journey we had gone through that was impactful as I strategically kind of almost, when you're in a life plan, you almost step outside of yourself. Wouldn't you agree,
Yeah.
Courtney? Like you kind of step outside of yourself. You're looking at these big white charts all over the room and you're realizing, oh wait, this is my storyline. And these are my gifts and talents. And it gives you the opportunity to look at it a little more unbiased, a little less emotional, and to really, really hone in on what am I saying yes to right now? What am I saying no to? And I think that when I walked away from my own life plan, even though I wasn't aware that I was going to become a facilitator, I felt there was some weight
Yeah.
lifted that I had been striving, and I had been like kind of, I mean, really, I imagine like like a beaver
Yeah.
building a dam. Like it's like I had just been working so hard to find my place, even at Lost
Yeah.
Valley. And that's what's crazy about it is, I'm gifted in hospitality, but there still was something not quite
Yeah.
balanced and right. And I remember walking away thinking, I feel a weight lifted, and I
Yeah.
wasn't even sure. I wasn't even sure what it
Yeah.
was. And I always tell clients, and I told you, Courtney, like, let it have its effect, and the effect will go on and on and
Yeah.
on and on. Because you walk out and you know something is, there's kind of, so many clients say there's kind of pre-life plan
Yeah.
life, and then there's post-life plan
That's right.
life, and that's kind of how they think of their either vocation or their home life or their personal life. And yeah,
How
I
would you
think it was,
define it for somebody that this is the first time they've heard life plan? How would you define it specifically for the brand that you do, but just getting a
yes,
life plan in general for a human? What does that mean?
yes. Um, it is strat strategic operations for your individual life. So, um, imagine like a person, which Patterson Center was actually birthed out of strat for
Wow.
corporations. And then Tom Patterson realized, why could we not take some of these same concepts and apply them to an individual life? We address 4 domains, and that's vocation, personal first,
Yeah.
honestly, which I think is important and significant. Personal, vocation, family, and community. And I think I told you this, Courtney. I always was. One thing that made me feel lighter after a life plan too was I realized we spent just as much time on working out my personal and my family life that we did my
Yeah.
vocation. Why do we live in this framework that our vocation is what defines
Correct.
us? I mean, it is that myth is rampant through our culture and our
Yeah.
society. And I love that Patterson Center, their way says, no, 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 you can bring just as many of your gifts and talents to your home life
Correct.
as you can to your vocation.
Yes.
Um,
Agreed.
it should be the same. It should be a level playing field. And when you're not doing that, there should be a red flag.
Correct.
There's something off. And so, I think that was a little bit of my lightness that I felt, that I realized, okay, as a homeschool mom, as a homemaker, as just a discipler of young girls, like all those relationships, all those young girls I was pouring into, I'm like, all these things that I feel that are, kind of rumbling inside
right.
of me, those can be applied,
That's right.
even if I'm not getting paid for it, even if I'm not. And I think from that point on, I did that wholeheartedly. And then it led me to being a life plan guide.
Yeah. As parents, we are all juggling busy households. Sometimes life gets a little messy, and that's why I love Home Threads, the perfect blend of comfort and style for your lively household. Home Threads has everything you need to make your house a little more peaceful in our chaotic world. At homethreads.com, find furniture that's resilient as your family. From pieces that stand the test of time to kid-friendly organizing and storage solutions, we've got the essentials to turn your mess into a masterpiece, all at the best value. I have received some pots and pans, some pillows, and a beautiful lamp, and I can say I truly love the value, and they just look great in my home, and I enjoy them so much. So thank you, Home Threads. Head on over to homethreads.com/mess and get a code for 15% off your first order today. Because life's messy, but your home doesn't have to be. Home Threads, where style meets the everyday mess. Home Threads, love where you live. I'll be honest, sometimes I feel guilty that some of the items in my closet have only been worn like once. But I also sometimes feel like I open my closet and have nothing to wear. Armoire can help with all of that because Armoire makes getting dressed easy. With a clothing rental membership from Armoire, you build the perfect wardrobe with brands that are high quality, unique, and recommended just for you. You can rent high quality designer clothing for every occasion and then send it back. Whether you're planning for your outfit for a date night or packing for a conference or in need of a gown for a black tie event, you will be the best dressed person in the room. All you have to do is take a 5-minute style quiz and select items for your dynamic, personalized closet. The styles show up at your door in little as 2 days, and then you're ready for new clothes. Just swap them out for new to use styles. I cannot wait to try my first box. Right now, my listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off their first month. That's up to $125 off. Just visit armoire.style/mess. That is armoire.style/mess, ARMOIRE.style/mess to get up to 50% off your first month and never worry about what to wear again. Try Armoire today. I love that also. I was so excited to get connected with you. Like we have several mutual friends, and I was like, I'd
Yes.
want to spend time with you just from what I'd heard about you because there's different plant coaches all over the country. But it was such a treat for Ron and I to get away. And I'll tell you kind of how we got there for those that are listening. But I do want to pause and say, I know you. I can think of like 10 people listening that are like immediately going to your site, looking it up, getting disappointed, saying, I can't afford that. And so I want you to hang in there with us because we're going to get to
Yes.
when is the right time, what are free
Yes.
options and all that. So don't miss that this is just
That's
a
right.
critical thing. So here's how Ron and I got to it. I would say that rumbling you're talking about was happening for like 5 or 6 years that we thought like, we knew that God like called us to some unique gifts as a couple. Like we're pretty bold and ambitious as each individually. And then we're married and that gets
Yes.
a little tricky. And so for years, I thought I've been kind of at home stuck per se and had different endeavors, but I felt like I was a horse behind the gate of a race that like as soon as they graduate, I'm
Yes.
going to bust out. And then he's been working his butt off for years and he's kind of trailing down and using my hands. He's trailing down to like, I'm so tired. I want to rest. And I've been like home, home, home. And then I'm like, I am out of here. And I really did have this moment of like, I understand why people get divorced when their kids graduate. Cause it's
Mm,
like, you have just been hanging in there and then you have different passions and talents. And so my real desire was
so
to
true.
get with
So
you and
true.
say, this is how God made me. This is how God made Ron. And this isn't just a couple thing. We just chose to pursue it as a couple because you can do it individually. But like, this is how you made each of us. Now, this is who we are as a couple. And we have one life. Like, as a couple, we have this
Mhm.
stewardship to you gave these things to us, whether it's financial resources or time or brain power. And what do you want to do with it? And so, what I loved about you is
Mhm.
I knew you were prayerfully guiding us through, like what the Holy Spirit was also telling you that there's plans and processes, but it's also a prayer for us to go, Lord, I could do a million things. What is the very
Mm.
best thing for this season? And so we came in specifically going, hey, Larson's graduating in 4 years. We can see a
Yeah.
transition timing happen for us. And we were very motivated. And so when we got there, it was like, I do not get Ron DeFeo for 4 days. Like we get a blip here. We've gone to counseling for 30 minutes. We've had a talk at night and then we get
Yeah.
frustrated and then we move on.
Yeah.
And so it was worth every penny for us to just sit in a room with you with no distractions for hours. And as an ADD girl,
Mhm.
I'm so proud of myself. Like I made it. I made
You
it.
did so good. You
We
did
made
so
it
good.
through. And then
And we helped Ron. We helped Ron use his words.
that's right.
We helped Ron
I
use his
had many
words.
words and Ron used his, but that is another piece I'll say was probably worth every penny too, is that I got to speak value and watch you speak value into who God made Ron to be, which I don't think he
Yeah.
saw the theme that was whether you're an executive, whether you're a coach on the team, whether you're at church, there's a theme to who God made you to be, Ron, and
That's
giving
right.
me
That's right.
voice to say that and affirm him, and you did too. And then same for me. I don't some of the things he said, I've never heard him say out loud. And it like
Um,
healed something in me that he saw value in the way God created me to be. And he just assumed, like, I thought you knew that. Like, I'm like, no, I've
yeah.
never heard you utter those words. So that's a lot. But
Mhm.
let's talk. Why do you love this job? Like, why do you love this?
Well, I was about to say, and let me, and this is it. This is the segue, right? That I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I am just facilitating a process that's been around for almost 50 years. And what happens, I believe, what I'm watching, I've done almost 25 now, which is, I'm a newbie. I'm still what do my kids say? I'm a noob.
No.
Um, but I, I do think that it's just the examination of our lives. Like you're right, taking the space and examining our lives, and it's taking inventory, going backwards, present day, and then projection in the future. And what I pray for each client is that they truly can kind of slough off all the noise of their personal
Mhm.
worlds and distractions. I mean, have you seen, I'm sorry, I hope I have time
Yeah,
for
go
this.
for it.
Have you seen that documentary, that Netflix documentary, The Blue Zones?
No.
Oh,
Do I need to add it to the
there's a little,
okay.
yes, you need to add it. It's so it's it's studying, like microcosms of cultures that have the most people that live to 100.
Wow.
So it's longevity of life. And a lot of it, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know that I really want to live to 100.
Exactly.
I'm like, I don't know that that's my goal. But I think that when I watched it, I realized there's such a vibrancy and quality of life that, of course, most of the cultures are remote. They are ag based, so they're out there gardening, and they are family oriented, so they're everything they do is with their family. There's not even retirement homes, like, just these concepts that feel so foreign to us. And the reason I say that is because I do think we have to fight. We have to literally swim upstream against our fast culture.
Mhm.
And because we can't change it at
Right.
this point, we're not going to change that, right? But can we, within our, again, kind of what God has given us dominion over today, can we either create the space and time to examine our lives? Of course, create the space and time to let God speak to
Mhm.
us. And the value of a life plan is that you're really having to work the process. So I always say, I'm like, listen, you're gonna bump into, there's gonna be roadblocks, right? There's gonna be times where you feel like just falling apart.
Yeah.
And I will hold space for that. But I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. So we really are, we are. It's formulated. It's a process, and we have to move through it. And so there's something about that I think a lot of people, because they go to counseling, there's a high emotion, and there's a place for
Yeah.
that. And I believe in it, and I have a counselor. But this is different.
Yeah.
This is really more practical, more pragmatic. I try to keep it that
Yeah. You
way.
sure
I
do.
think when you agree,
Yes.
Courtney, it's, we're really trying to keep moving through the strategy of examining your life. And so, yeah, we look at all four domains, and we really try to take a balanced
Yeah.
approach and finding your calling and your purpose in each of those domains.
Right.
The truth is, like you said, there's usually a real bright flashing sign
Yeah.
of a theme and a
That's right.
pattern in your life that shows up over and over and
Well,
over
and that's
again.
what
And
I
it's
want to
crazy.
say. It's
It's just
not
crazy.
magic. Like at the end of it, it all computes, and you're
That's
like,
right.
this is the exact job. Like we've filtered probably 5 jobs through, and then you would go through and say, do these align with your values? Do these align with your
That's right.
giftings? And it turned out the one on the 4 is what I'm doing right now. And it was such affirmation to be like, for this season, and based on what you value, and based on the way God made you, you are in the right seat. And that was super
That's right.
exciting. And then 2, I loved you because you're listening. You knew me a little bit, but you're listening to the whole thing go down. Ron and I's discussions, you're looking at the data. And then there were a couple things that you were like, hey, pause. I think you need to talk to your counselor about this. Like you keep
Yeah.
saying this. And I loved your courage to be like, we're not going to resolve that today, but this might be holding you back. And I walked away with 2 places that I immediately took to my counselor. That was one of my action items.
Yeah.
And so I do
Yes.
think you're aware of like, that is a lie, or that is something that's holding you back. And you're able to say like, we're not going to solve that today, but it's worth you
Right.
tracking that down.
Yeah. We always bring awareness to like the weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that Hebrews 12, 1 and 2, like the sin and
Yeah.
weight. And that word weight is, so I just talked on this yesterday to a group, is it means burden or
Yeah.
hindrance. So it's throwing off those. It may not be rebellion against God, but it could just be, like you said, slowing you down. And we do identify those things,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
threats.
Yeah. All right. 2 more questions. I wish we could do this. This one's gonna be a little longer, but there's nothing we can cut because it's so good. It's so good. Talk to us about, so say they don't have a spouse, or say they're really wanting to do this for
Yes.
themselves. Why do you think as women and moms, it's so important for us to just really get to know ourselves? Like I know when those little years, like you said, I'm like in my head thinking like, did I make that up? Am I even a good writer? Like you just get
Right.
so lost. And so what are like, do you think that's important that as women, we just start a journey? Because I feel like when we got to you, you were like, y'all are easy, but I had been studying myself and doing every test and working on
That's
myself
right.
for the 20 years before I got to you. So is it
Yeah.
important? And what are some steps people can take as a young mom, or even at 40, to start getting to know themselves better even before they get to you?
Yeah, I remember I have this very kind of core memory of being at the ranch, being in that double wide trailer, the baby's napping, and a staff girl had expressed some disappointment in me,
Mm.
had, pretty much said, like, you say you're discipling me, but I don't feel
Oh
like
gosh.
this is discipleship. And of course, I'm drowning in
Yeah.
babies crying, and I have staff in my house all the time, and I'm thinking I'm doing the best I
Yeah.
can. Everything in me. It does. It feels like a milestone of growth for me, because I remember looking at her, and everything in me wanted to defend myself, and I sat quietly
Mm.
and listened. And by the end of it, I just said, I'm so sorry that that's what you've experienced. And can I just take this before the Lord? I had never done that before,
Wow.
Courtney. I had never done that before. I think that I tended, because I was a middle child, and I kind of always had to fight for
Yeah.
fight for my rights, as they say. And that was something I did, and I was defensive. And I don't know why the Lord chose in that moment to do that, but thankfully, right after that, He gave me a quiet house, and I went up. I could walk just a little ways, a few feet up, and the beauty of the ranch was that I could walk a few feet up and like be seeing the most incredible
Mm.
views. And it really was my first reckoning with God. That, first of all, the view I choose to look at changes my
Wow.
world that I'm living in. It really did. Like at the ranch, it was a constant reminder. Like wherever I choose to
Mm.
gaze is what I'm going to be
Right.
experiencing. Um, and I remember sitting there asking him, sitting there probably pretty tired and maybe even emotional, and just saying, Lord, what do you want from
Mm.
me? Because I'm tired of living for everyone else's approval. I'm tired of, trying to please everyone. And I don't even have it in me to please. Like I don't have the capacity to please everyone. And so, Lord, out of desperation, I'm asking, what do you want from me? And out of that came, that sweet time with him came a very strategic, like more strategic way that I did discipleship at Lost Valley. It gave me even just that much more freedom to say, first of all, to say to the staff girls, like, when this happens to you, when you get called out, take it before the Lord
Yeah.
first, like take a pause. And so even that moment of being taught, I then could teach. Um, and I do think it was a very, very heavenly moment
Wow.
for me as a young leader. And it came out of, I mean, it was a dark day. It was a
Yes.
dark day.
No, I'm glad you answered. I was asking, like, is it matter to work on yourself? And I think what you just brought up was
Oh,
so massive. Like, I have to
so
pause on that for just a second.
okay.
So, okay, the fact that you pause, I think when I was a young mom and any cool idea came to my head, I thought it was Jesus, and I immediately responded. I was like, okay, and I would like, oh, I'm writing a book by Tuesday. Oh, I'm speaking. And I was like, now I've grown and can pause and say, is this
And
for me and
pause.
for now? And I love that
That's
he
right.
even gave you boundaries to say, like, it is in you to disciple people. But what does that look like in light of having a family? Like, there's
Mhm.
seasons where you would have hundreds, but it's like, okay, girls, I do want to disciple you, but here's the framework where that can happen. It can't be you
Mhm.
knocking on the door
Mhm.
during a nap time and expecting that I'm going to drop everything. And so, oh, it's so good. I think people
Right.
needed to hear that. So, for the people that are like, I don't know if a life plan is right for me, but I do want to get to know myself. Like, I want to start making progress and figuring out what are my values? What am I good at? So, where can they start and how can they figure out if a life plan is a good next step for them?
Honestly, I would start by looking at pattersoncenter.org. I think, and I'm sure you have
Yeah.
episode notes. We'll put these in. But I do think that they do the Patterson, because they have the history of of the organization. They do a really good job of answering the question of what is a life plan. I can meet, and then I have a website, brookewarnock.com. I can meet couples, individuals. I can now do virtual. I've learned to do that. Virtual is it's a little bit, I would say, I need to figure out a way to say this well, but
Less ideal,
yeah, I
maybe.
mean, it's just less ideal. It's a little bit, I would say, watered down, but it's still, you're walking away. All my virtual clients have still been incredibly satisfied. And if you're not sure, and it's cheaper, it is a cheaper way to do it. And if you're not sure, I have a few clients who are always willing to talk to,
Mhm.
potential clients and give their
Yeah.
experience. And right now you're getting to talk to one or listen to one. Um, and so that helps. But yeah, I think, and then also, um, actually, as soon as this episode airs, we are going to have a pop up on my website that gives, if you provide your email, I will send you a free assessment of whether or not you are a great candidate for life planning. And so
Okay.
that will come and that's free. Yes, it is an investment. It is, it's my sister and I joke. It's like a good old inside joke. You can't quite know the value of it until you are actually living it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hopefully, with all the word of mouth, with some voices that you trust, it is. I have yet to have you know, a
Yeah.
client who does not feel.
Money back guarantee.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have yet to have a client who does not feel like it was worth it. But please, on my website, you can inquire, and there's a way to email and inquire about it. And I always am open to conversations. We do payment plans. I talk to you about your finances because I
Yeah.
don't want it to
Yeah.
be something that's completely
Yeah.
inhibited by that. So
Yeah. Let's end here. Brooke, I know when we got on, you said you woke up in the night, and even as we started, your heart was really heavy for the mom that's stuck
yeah.
and just feels like, is this the story? Is this what I do, is change diapers and be so unseen? So will you just encourage, even if you want to pray or just encourage that mom that's
Mm,
listening, that's probably in tears already, like, oh my gosh, they're reading my heart. They know where I am.
yeah. Keep going. Your perseverance, your endurance in the small ways is going to add up to big kingdom change. I believe it in my gut that there is going to be an end to the story, that all of us are, when we have the assurance of salvation, that all of us are going to be. I just think it's going to be the best ending. And
Mm.
I think that, when I don't know, I think I got cut off, but the idea of really tending to what God has given you to tend to right now, that if you can um, gaze your eyes upon the right things, if you can remember what really is important, like what make the thing, um, your kids' hearts, their
Mm.
souls, they're becoming human beings. Like these are things that
Mhm.
right now it feels like you're there just to keep them alive. But Courtney and I can both say it happens in the blink of an eye, and you're going to be launching humans into the world
Yep.
to change
Yep.
the world and to add to the world or take away from the world. And it
Mhm.
matters what you're doing.
Yep.
It matters what you're
Yeah.
doing. And with a little bit of effort, a little bit of self awareness, a little bit of really recognizing what God is calling out in you right now, you can apply that to these tiny humans, to these children that you're supposed to take care of right now. These gifts that are given to you were given to you early on, and they do not lay dormant. You can
Mm.
access them at any time within your home life, within your marriage, within your community. There are ways, and even if you can't right now pursue a life plan, there are ways. And I would like to, Courtney, if it's okay, if I have time,
Yeah.
I would like to give you a couple of questions that maybe you could sit with yourself. These are just nuggets of life planning that I'm just going to provide to the
Yeah.
listener. There is what's called the four helpful list. And Courtney and Ron did this, and this is considered pre work, but it also is a good, again, taking inventory of your life right now and
Mhm.
then knowing how to strategically move out. We do four columns, and it's what is wrong, what is right, what is confused, what is missing. And if you can
Mm.
just in your life, in all your domains, personal, family, vocation, and community, are the domains that apply to your life. If you can really just bullet point the things that are wrong, the things that are right, the things that are confused, the things that are missing,
Mm.
it's amazing what just that level of, again, just taking some inventory can do for you.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say is, um, try to, like, with your spouse, if you haven't done this ever before, they could change, especially if you're kind of in the survival of small children right now. But
Yeah.
name 4 or 5 core values of your home,
Yeah.
like what you
Yeah.
want to make sure and pass on to your children when you move out into community, into church life, even on social media. So often we don't apply our core values to what we put out there on social media.
That's right.
Um, think of what, like, 3 or 4 core values and why those are core values. And I always say, what a core value is when it's being violated. So like,
Yeah.
it could be that you're working with someone or someone in your home even is rubbing up against a core value, and they may not be wrong and right. It may not be, it's kind of what you said, it's just different. You have different core values, and that's one way, unfortunately, that you do know that there's a core value there. So those are my
Ooh,
two.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love
those are my
that.
two
This one
that,
isn't a core value for me, but I've noticed I love being positive. Like
yeah,
positivity is my top 5 strengths.
yes.
And when anyone's negative, it just makes me
Oh,
insane.
oh,
Like, and it's like, okay, maybe there's just more realist and I'm more Pollyanna,
right.
but it
It
does
does me
rub
too.
something against me that's
Me
like,
too.
oh,
I know.
how could you not see the gifts around you and
I
all the
know.
good things?
I know. I'm the same way, Courtney.
Oh
Which
my
I think
gosh,
was
Brooke, this is
optimism.
so
Was optimism one of yours?
probably,
I
yeah.
bet
We
it
joke
was.
that Ron and I'm a cranky optimist and he's a happy
Yes, that's
pessimist.
right. That's right.
He's just like happy because he expects the worst of the world. And he's like, look, we survived today. And I think we could actually change the world and thrive. And then my
I
jeans don't
love
fit and
y'all
I'm pissed
so
off
much.
all day.
I love it so much.
Hey, I truly love you. I
Truly
just thank you
feel
that
the
you came
same.
into my life and you're so good at your job. And I love seeing you in this stage of being able to do more with your giftings and not more, do it differently and
Yeah,
outside
yeah.
of your kids' lives
Apply it
is to
differently.
really
Yeah.
impactful. Yeah.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you for the opportunity.
Let's do it again.
Okay.
Bye. Okay, bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pardon the Mess. As always, we've got more encouragement and resources over at christianparenting.org. And you can also stay connected with us on social media at Pardon the Mess. And if you like this episode, I'd love for you to do 2 things. Press follow on whatever podcast platform you love, and also be sure to leave a rating so other parents can find us. Remember, you're never alone in this beautiful mess of parenting.